have to do it themselves. What happens? Our kids do it themselves. Because we don't really learn from other people's lessons, we kind of get a glimpse into it, but then when we do it ourselves, those are the life lessons. And I always say, life lessons are the hardest because the test comes when you actually get a lesson, right? And how we respond instead of reacting or responding to a certain situation. But what happens when we feel like we've lost all hope? That we've been praying and asking God for deliverance in a certain situation? What is God doing? What is Jesus doing when everything seems to be falling apart? Well, God is God, right? God has got a whole lot of irons in the furnace, in the fire that he's working on behind the scenes. We only know what we've got right in front of us. We know our part of the story. But our part of the story is actually part of God's bigger story. Each and every one of us has our own story and our own part in God's bigger story. Now sometimes we get a glimpse into how big God really is. This was some time ago. And I was at work one morning and I was so excited because my sister was coming to visit me. She lived in Florida and we were in Connecticut and she was coming for the holidays. I was so excited. I got to work that morning and I just couldn't wait till that afternoon. I was going to go to the airport and pick her up. It was going to be fabulous. It was my husband, myself, and our 4 little boys. They were just 6, 4, 3, and 3 at the time. Yes, 4 boys and the last 2 were twins. So there I was at work. My phone rang. It was my sister. Hello, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see you this afternoon. Silence. That's why I called. I'm not coming today. What? What do you mean you're not coming today? I know. I was going to kill myself, but I decided to call you instead. Well, let me tell you, those words washed over me. I couldn't believe I was hearing those words. I needed to do something, and I needed to do something right then and right now to help my sister. She's in Florida. I'm in Connecticut. I go, what's going on? I don't understand. She said, I'm okay. I'm all right now. I'm not going to do it. I decided to call you. But then she said she was going to hang up and call her husband. And I was going to hang up and call our mom, who was also in Florida, just 2 hours away. And so that's exactly what I did. We hung up, and I called my mom. I went home that day, devastated, just thinking, what can I do? There's got to be something that I can do. Surely I can do something to help save my sister. And then it hit me. A few months back, I had gone to a workshop on prayer shawls. It was lovely. These women had developed a special pattern for making these prayer shawls. And this mission had now gone worldwide. But it was just at the beginning of this mission that they were developing, the prayer shawls. And I thought, that's it. Now, I hadn't did it in years and years and years, but I thought, that I can do. So the next day, I went right to my house and I bought everything that I needed. I got out all of the stuff from that workshop. I sat down and I read the directions. I sat on the floor, I spread out all of the materials, and I said a prayer over them, blessing all of the materials before I even started the project. And then I started. I don't know if we have any knitters out there, but boy, when you try to reach back in your mind, it's not as easy as what you remember. So the first thing is to cast onto the needle. So I'm trying to figure it out. It took me a few times, but I finally got it. That's how you do it. Cast on, cast on, cast on. That's your first row. Then your next row is when you actually do your first knit. Knit, knit, knit. Knit, purl, whatever your pattern may be, right? So I got it. I started knitting, and it was growing and growing. Now, this was not a project that happened overnight. This was something that took me about a week to do, because you have to remember, I work full time. I had 4 little boys at home. But I had to do something. My sister was okay because her husband and my mom were now with her. I knew she was okay, but I had to get this done. So I come home. I'm almost to the end. I get right up to the end, and I need to cast off before I can do all the finishing touches, you know, have the little fringe on, make it pretty. It was 9:30 at night, and my mind went completely blank. I had no idea how to cast off the stitches. I couldn't do anything else until I did that next step. I looked at the clock, and I looked at my needlework, and I looked at the clock again, and I thought, who can I call at 9:30 at night? I'm not scared to death, right? So I thought, Leslie. Leslie was my friend at church, and I knew she knew how to knit. So I called her and told her what I was doing and what had happened. And she said, Cher, she said, I can't walk you through doing it over the phone. She said, I can show you how to do it. She said, but I can't talk you through it. She goes, but you know what? She said, Beth will be able to do that for you. And as soon as she said Beth's name, I knew who she was speaking about. Now, Beth was another person in our congregation, a friend, but not a real close friend, not like Leslie was, but she was a friend and acquaintance. And for sure, yes, I happily took her phone number, and I called Beth. And I explained to her what I was doing, and she walked me through. I was able to take the casting off, get that done, do the tassels the next day, and went to bring the whole family together that night once it was finished. We sat on the floor in a circle. I spread the shawl out so that it touched each and every one of us, laid my hands out and said a prayer of blessing that this shawl would comfort her and give her hope for a future. Got it wrapped up and popped it in the mail, and boy, I knew that was it. That was going to do it, right? It had to. I prayed over every single part of that shawl. Surely it was going to save her life. I'm at church one day, and I see Beth, beginning of the service. And she goes up onto the chancel, and she invites up Reverend Margaret J., our associate pastor. And she was going to present her with a prayer shawl, because Margaret J. was going to have chemotherapy and surgery for breast cancer. And as Beth began to talk, she turned and looked at me, and she said, this prayer shawl ministry started one night with a phone call from Sharon Bullard. I have to say, tears, the emotions that overwhelmed me and streamed down my face. You see, that shawl did not save my sister. She successfully took her life 14 months later, and that had been 6 months before this day in church. And as I sat there and I heard her say those words, I thought, it's bigger. God is bigger. God is so much bigger than what we think. I thought it was about me. I thought it was about my sister. I thought it was, what can I do to help her? And God said, sweetheart, I've got you. I've got your sister. Do you see what I've done with this pain in your life? Do you see this ministry that now is thriving within your congregation? Do you see how that this is moving on? You see, God is bigger. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about my sister. It wasn't about the prayer shawl. It wasn't about saving my sister. It wasn't even about the prayer shawl ministry that started within our own congregation. It was about God is bigger. And God can work all things for good, for those that love Him and work for His purpose. God is bigger. And sometimes we get those glimpses an anointed